Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Nebraska Comprehensive Literacy State Development Grant Technical Assistance Webinar. This webinar is being recorded and will be shared on the NDE CLSD website. My name is Victoria Katzberg. I am the Literacy Program Specialist for the CLSD grant. I have a background in grants, specifically competitive grants, and I have been brought on as the CLSD grant specialist. In other words, I bridge that gap between our application and goals that were submitted to the Department of Education with the work of the grantees, all while ensuring compliance with federal and state rules and regulations. Throughout the grant period, I will collaborate closely with the awarded grantees to track progress and provide comprehensive reports to our federal program officer. Today, I will be speaking about the RFA process and expectations, highlighting key components of the CLSD grant, which will be some of the boring stuff, and then I'll also highlight some of the fun stuff, which will be the literacy activities that we believe will get us to where we need to be. Now let's take a look at the CLSD team. I work closely with Allison Denbesti, the academic officer, and Dr. Marissa Pazant, the content area standards and instructions director. We will also have a literacy program officer starting in July. Jamie Cook's experience will be an absolute asset to the CLSD grant, and we cannot wait to welcome her in July. Although we are the primary four faces of the grant, so many NDE staff have contributed to this application in order to make this possible. I'd like to specifically call out our commissioner, Dr. Maher, for his continued focus on literacy, and the Nebraska State Board of Education, who have also identified literacy as a priority. It really was a team effort, and it continues to be a team effort as we continue this CLSD journey. As we go through the RFA, each slide will highlight the relevant section, so feel free to have the RFA on hand for reference. For instance, the schedule of events can be found in section 3.2, which is located on pages 13 and 14 of the RFA. We are happy to announce we are officially on event number 3 of the schedule of events. The application content has gone live. It is open on the online grants management system known as GMS, and we are in the middle of the technical assistance webinar. The questions and answers period will go through Friday, May 30th. So any questions after that day will not be answered, so be sure to submit those questions before that date. A friendly reminder, the applications will be due no later than Monday, June 2nd. So if it were me, I would try to have my application in by Friday, May 30th, which is the last day for questions, in case I had any issues. But ultimately, it's up to you. You have until Monday, June 2nd. We will start the evaluation period on Tuesday, June 3rd through Tuesday, July 22nd. We will then submit an intent to award agenda item to the Nebraska State Board of Education. An agenda item must be submitted 2 weeks prior to any board meeting. We will then present the awarded grantees to the board on Thursday, August 7th and Friday, August 8th. Upon their approval, we will post the awarded grantees on the NDE CLSD website and start the process to finalize your subgrants. This is an informational webinar only. There was no question and answer section today. We please ask that you use our written questions and answers process laid out in section 3.4 of the RFA. This way, everyone has access to the answers at the same time. We'll be posting your answers on the frequently asked questions document that can be found on the NDE CLSD website. Now let's dive into the grant itself. Let's start with the purpose. The purpose of the CLSD program is to advance literacy skills, including pre-literacy skills, reading and writing, for children from birth to grade 12 with an emphasis on disadvantaged children, including children living in poverty, English learners, and children with disabilities. I'd like to highlight that this emphasis is designated as a top priority of the grant, consistently highlighted throughout the RFA, and plays a major role in the scoring process. As part of our NDE grant application, we identified 3 key goals that we believe directly support the overarching mission of the grant. Goal 1, cohesion and alignment of statewide tools and resources. Goal 2, Statewide teacher and leader training and preparation in structured literacy and the science of reading, encompassing strategies from early childhood through adult literacy. And goal 3, support the selection, implementation, and continuation of high-quality instructional materials, HQIM, and evidence-based practices to promote adequacy and resources for undeserved students in early learning programs and school settings. In addition to the 3 primary goals, we've also included a set of long-term measurable objectives in our NDE grant application. The leading target, which is increased third grade proficiency on the NSCAS ELA to 75% by 2030. This should likely be familiar to many of you, if not all of you. This goal, along with the others outlined below, is intended to be achieved over the course of the grant period. As you complete your application, we encourage you to keep these targets in mind, as we're eager to understand how you plan to contribute to reaching these outcomes. There is one that I would like to clarify, and that is the 94.5% of participating 4-year-old children will achieve significant gains in oral literacy. This includes only the children who are observed for oral language in ESU or LEA operated early childhood education centers through the TS Gold assessment. This is a great graphic that we had created to kind of visualize this literacy journey here at the Nebraska Department of Education. So again, we highlight that 2030 goal of the 75% of third graders will be proficient. And we believe the cars are all the ways that we can get there. But cars cannot run without the fuel that they need, which you can see at the gas station. And we want to highlight that CLSD is just one of the sources, one of the funding sources for this bigger project. So we really just like to highlight that there's a bigger picture here. There's a lot of different sections in place to get us to where this goal is, but the CLSD is just a supplement. It's just one of the many ways that we can hopefully reach our goal. All right, now let's talk about who can apply. What is listed on the slide is the official language for the eligible entities of the grant. In simple terms, it is as follows. A would be a district or districts plural. I'd like to highlight that this is limited to public schools. B is early childhood education program or programs, plural, that demonstrate a record of providing comprehensive literacy instruction. This is that birth to kindergarten entry age band. It is not limited to district-run preschools, but instead opens the door to any early childhood education program that serves low-income or otherwise disadvantaged children. C would be a consortium of such districts or consortium of early childhood programs or a mix of both together, acting in partnership with one or more public or private nonprofit organizations or agencies that demonstrate a record of effectiveness in improving literacy achievement in children and providing professional learning and comprehensive literacy instruction. So an example of C would be like an ESU. A common question I have received is if an ESU applies on behalf of our district, can we also apply separately the district as a sole applicant? And the answer is yes. There's nothing that prohibits a district from applying as part of a consortium and applying on their own, even for the same age band. Applications will need to have a clear separation of activities being funded by the grant. So there can be no overlap in activities in the event both applications are accepted. When one entity is receiving 2 streams of funds from the same funding source, an auditor may worry there is double dipping. So as long as there is a clear separation of what grant is doing what, there should be no issues. If you're unsure about your eligibility, I strongly encourage you to reach out. I'm happy to review your situation with you and help determine your fit for this opportunity. Please note that applications submitted by ineligible applicants will not be scored, and I'd much rather help you avoid any unnecessary time and frustration early on in the process if you were considered an ineligible entity. We are honored to be CLSD recipients. We are awarded approximately $55 million through September 30th, 2029. 95% of that must be competitively bid out in the form of a subgrant. That means approximately $52,250,000 is available for Nebraska CLSD subgrant awards through September 2029. I need to highlight that funding depends on continued availability of funds. If Nebraska's CLSD grant funding is decreased or eliminated, subgrant funds would likewise be decreased or eliminated. As of now, we've received year one funding, which totals to approximately $11 million. Based on conversations with our federal program officer, as well as what we're hearing through the broader grants community, the outlook for year two funding is very promising. And in a time filled with much uncertainty, I am genuinely pleased to be able to share such encouraging news. I've already highlighted one of our key grant priorities, which focuses on supporting disadvantaged children, including those living in poverty, English learners, and children with disabilities. Another priority is ensuring that the federal requirements for fund allocation are met. Specifically, 15% of the subgrant funding must be allocated to the birth to kindergarten entry age group, 40% to the kindergarten through grade 5, and 40% to the grade 6 through 12 age group. These allocation percentages are for us, NDE, as an agency to fill. You do not have to fulfill these requirements in your grant application. All right, next up, which is the award of funding. NDE will award the top scoring applicants for each tier as NDE determines and as funding allows. NDE will conduct a fair, impartial, and comprehensive evaluation of all applications in accordance with the predetermined criteria based on the application. This breakdown is an approximation and is contingent on applications received. So what does that mean? In a perfect world, we plan to have 48 awards between the three tiers as stated on the slide. Until we see what applications we actually receive, we cannot guarantee this structure. For example, what if we only receive two tier 3 applications? Well, then we'll have to make the necessary adjustments and award more tier 1 and tier 2 awards. One thing is for certain, we must maintain the priorities of the grant, which is going to be that 15-40-40 rule and an emphasis on disadvantaged children, including children living in poverty, English learners, and children with disabilities. Now that you know the purpose, who is eligible, and what funds are available, let's talk about how you cannot spend them. When you are filling out the budget, ask yourself, is this cost allowable, allocable, reasonable, and consistent? I always like to highlight the reasonable one. Is the cost considered appropriate, justifiable, and aligned with the circumstances in which they are incurred? Professional learning is an allowable cost. An all-inclusive professional learning retreat in Hawaii sounds absolutely fabulous, but that's not reasonable. Therefore, not allowable. A parking ticket you received while attending a professional learning opportunity is also not an allowable cost. If you are unsure about a cost, please ask permission, not forgiveness. This is a cost reimbursement grant. We can deny your reimbursement request and therefore not pay for it. The bill will be left for you to sort out. We have also received the question of when can we start spending? A friendly reminder that this is a competitive grant. Therefore, just because you've applied does not mean you are automatically granted the money. You cannot be reimbursed for activities or invoices prior to the start date of the grant, which would be provisionally that August 11th start date. So if you are purchasing materials in July, we cannot reimburse you for those materials. Let's talk about supplement, not supplant. CLSD grantees must adhere to the supplement, not supplant provision under Section 2301 of the ESSA, which states that funds made available under this title shall be used to supplement and not supplant non-federal funds that would otherwise be used for the activities authorized under this title. So when the government gives extra money, like a grant, that money is supposed to add to what schools or programs are already spending, not replace what they are already paying for. So supplement would equal add to, supplant equals replace. Let's say a school usually pays for an English teacher using its own money. If the school gets a special grant, extra money from the government, it can't stop using its own money and use the grant to pay for the same English teacher instead. That would be supplanting, replacing the original money with new money, and that is not allowed. Instead, the school should use the grant to hire a literacy coach, for example, or start an after-school literacy club, something new that supplements what they're already doing. Let's talk about why this matters. It makes sure that the extra money helps students more instead of just letting schools spend less of their own money. Now that we've covered the basics of the RFA process and what activities are not allowed, I'm going to highlight a few of the allowable activities in the 2.2 allowable activities section. If you have any specific questions to this section, I encourage you to please reach out via our written questions and answers process, and we're happy to talk with you more about these activities. As you'll see throughout the application, we kind of have like 6 categories that we'll be covering as far as activities go, which would be professional learning, curriculum-based professional learning, instructional materials, local literacy plan development, assessment and intervention, and literacy partnerships and family literacy. Here are a couple of examples of some allowable activities for the birth through kindergarten entry. You are not required to do all of these. You can pick one of these items. It'll be your decision in your application what activities you decide to take on, but we just wanted to give you a few examples of each age band. So some examples for birth through kindergarten entry would be science of reading or evidence-based reading training for early childhood educators, curriculum-based professional learning for standards-aligned instructional materials, purchase of instructional materials, training related to identification and support for early childhood foundational skills development, and literacy partnerships, or also known as family literacy. Some examples for the kindergarten through grade 5 age band of allowable activities would be science of reading or evidence-based reading training for K through 5 educators, CBPL, which is that curriculum-based professional learning for standards-aligned instructional materials, the purchase of instructional materials, training related to identification and support for implementation of the Nebraska Reading Improvement Act, and literacy partnerships or family literacy. For the grades 6 through 12 allowable activities, we've also listed some examples. Science of reading, evidence-based reading for training for 6 through 12 educators, CBPL for standards-aligned instructional materials, purchase of instructional materials, training related to identification and support for adolescents reading below grade level, and the literacy partnerships or family literacy section. Again, if you have any questions, I recommend that you dive into the RFA for the more detailed section of this, but please reach out. We're here as a support, and we can help you understand that section further if you need.